Hello, I'm Chris Robinson, and welcome to the Robinson Violin School. This is our free course where we will be taking complete beginners, and in 7 days, we will be playing our very first piece on the violin. And this is day 5 of our free course, where we will actually be discovering what our piece is for this week in this 7-day course. So I'm extremely excited to introduce this piece to you all and then dive in, learning the notes and rhythms of this piece and guiding you through a lot of the practice strategies to getting this piece under your fingers and performing it. It's extremely exciting this day in the course. So let's go ahead and dive in. I have the presentation ready. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are, day 5, learning your first piece. How freaking exciting. I'm so thrilled for you guys. So this is our agenda for today. Learning the notes you'll need. We will, I will show you how to break the music down into manageable sections, right? And then I will also show you some practice strategies for success. So how to practice the piece and set yourself up for as much success as possible. And then I'll show you how to put everything together. So we'll break it down and then bring it back together. All right, let's get started. So some things out of the beginning here. Follow our channel, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Share this free course with as many people as possible. Let's make learning the violin accessible to everyone, and let's start a music making revolution. Now, warning, this is the most important video in this course so far. Don't jump around or skip this video. This is extremely important. And so here we are, day 5, learning the notes you'll need, okay? So, yeah, so how to read and play the notes. So first, we're gonna have to figure out what piece we're actually gonna play. So, we will be exploring a violin piece, and more specifically, a traditional song that most people will probably know. And I thought a lot about what to make this course about in terms of the specific piece, and I thought basically a really universal song that most people would know and understand will probably be the best thing because, and also the most approachable to learn on a new instrument. And really, something that you've heard before and is familiar is always a great place to start. And so, for the purpose of this course, I chose to have everyone learn Mary Had a Little Lamb, okay? So now if that feels like, wow, Chris, that's very easy and I was expecting something more. Well, just wait for the bonus piece that you'll discover at the end of this course, okay? So just wait for that. And so more specifically for Mary Had a Little Lamb, you will be learning this piece in A major, okay, in the key of A, and you'll be playing all the notes on the A string. And the cool thing about this and the way that I planned it out was that if you've been practicing the finger exercises, you've actually played every single note and Mary Had a Little Lamb already. You just didn't know it yet. And so it's actually just about the ordering of the notes and the rhythm. And you've actually been playing things a little bit more difficult than, like, to be honest, a little bit more difficult than Mary Had a Little Lamb and the finger exercises. So this may feel a little bit easier, I hope, or even more approachable, especially because I think most people will already know it. Um, but uh, but yeah, so I'll show you the ropes. We just have to work on getting the order of the notes and rhythms correct. All right, so let's get to it. So breaking it down into chunks. So this is the first 4 measures of Mary Had a Little Lamb, okay? So you'll see that I've I've included a few things here, okay? So let's remember and recap some of the stuff that we learned in some of the earlier videos in the course. So remember our time signature, okay? So the time signature, we have 4/4. So the top number will tell us how many beats are in a measure, right? And then the bottom number will tell us what gets the beat, okay? So in this case, in 4/4 time, we have 4 beats in a measure, and then the quarter note gets the beat, okay? So that's what that means. And as you see, we have 4 quarter notes here and 4 beats. Here we have 2 quarter notes and 1 half note. A half note is 2 beats, so that's still 4 beats in this measure, so on and so forth. And then the third and fourth, or the second, third, and fourth measure are the same rhythm, just different notes, all right? So now the other thing is I've put the note names below, all right? And then I've also put the fingerings. And remember, this is all on the A string. You won't have to play any other string on the violin for this piece. It's just entirely on the A string, okay? So when you see a 2, that means your second finger. When you see a 1, it means your first finger. And when you see a 0, that means your open string, so you don't have any fingers down. And since this is the same note in the measure, I didn't want to reiterate C sharp and the second finger. So, and then here, the fourth finger on the A string is E, right? And so yeah, and again, I didn't want to reiterate the E and 4 since it was just the same note again, okay? So, and then also remember how we read music. I basically spelled out all the note names anyways, but it is helpful for you to just review this. And so remember what the spaces mean for the spaces on the staff. So basically it spells out face, so F-A-C-E, if you're building from the bottom up in terms of the spaces. And so this third space here, C, and in this case it's C sharp. Again, you don't really have to worry too much of why it's C sharp rather than C at this point. Maybe some of you already know a little bit more about music theory because you've played other instruments before, so you know you kind of understand all that. But if you don't worry about it. Not necessarily important to know at this point. All right. Okay, so that's basically it. And again, oh, I didn't say this, but you won't have to use your third finger actually in this entire piece. All right, so for the entire song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, you don't need to use your third finger actually. Okay, so it's just your second finger, your first finger, and your fourth finger, and then open strings. All right, well, just your open A string. So, and then again, review identifying quarter notes and half notes along with how many beats they get. And we just did that, all right? So remember a quarter note gets 1 beat and then a half note gets 2 beats. Okay, so I will come out of this presentation and then get my violin and bow and then demonstrate not only the first 4 measures, but also talk about some practice strategies, how to break this into smaller chunks, um, and make this easy peasy, okay? So, I'll see you in a second with my violin and bow. All right, welcome here with our violins and our bows. This is such an exciting moment because we've worked really hard, right? We're in our 5th day and we finally get to actually start working on this piece that we've been preparing for and trying to learn the ins and outs of the violin, how to hold it, how to produce a quality sound, how to get our fingers moving, and just like, you know, learning as much as we can in order to start really learning a piece on the violin. And to get to this point is actually quite hard, especially in the time that you have. And so just being here right now in this moment, watching this video and being able to apply yourself for now the 5th day is absolutely incredible, like absolutely amazing, and you should be incredibly proud of yourself. And I am so thrilled for you all. So here we go. Let's dive in. Mary Had a Little Lamb, which I'm sure a lot of you know. And if you don't, then hey, I'm so glad you get introduced to it now in this course. Let's again, so we're gonna focus on the first four measures. I have the piece up here, the music up here, and also I have the music linked into the in the resources in this video description. So just scroll down and you'll see the link to a PDF where you can just download it. And yeah, so make sure you do that so that you can have it in front of you. So because I'll break this down measure by measure, okay? So first off, again, let's just focus on the first measure here, okay? And the first measure has it has four quarter notes, but three different notes, right? We have a C sharp, we have a B, then we have an A, and then a B again, okay? So we have two Bs, and so we don't have to worry too much about the last B for now, okay? So what I want you to do is just focus on the first three notes, okay? So we're just gonna really focus on 2, 1, open in terms of our fingerings, okay? Now let's review our posture and our bow holds, okay? So first, remember how to put the violin up. We should be probably pretty good at this by now, and if not, that's totally fine. And if you still feel like you need to adjust it some, that's also totally fine, okay? And then let's make sure we have our bow grips ready, right? So remember, our ring finger is on the eye, and then we have our pinky here, nice and curved, and then our index finger just relaxed, and our thumbs are bent, right? Okay, amazing. All right, and so here we go. So let's just try the first three notes, okay? So 2, 1, open, all right? So let me show you first. So I'll just play the first three notes, okay? Ready, go. Okay, so just those three notes, okay? I'll do it one more time. Ready, go. All right, so I would practice just that until that was pretty comfortable, okay? Then, once that's pretty comfortable, I'll add the last note in that measure, which is a B natural, okay? So I'm going to start around the middle of the bow, all right? And now I'm going to play all the notes in that first measure. So I'm going to add that B natural at the end. Okay, so I would do that now just a few times. I would probably repeat that a few times just so that I was able to process that, okay? So 2, 1, open, 1. I may even sing it to myself a few times in between repetitions, okay? Now, you don't have to go as fast as I'm going right now. If you'd like to go slower, please do. If you would like to put pauses in between each note so that you have time to think and collect and understand how your hand should move for the next note, please take that time, okay? We're not trying to rush through this process, right? What we're really trying to do is learn the strategies to grow and always progress. And these are all strategies to help you do that, okay? So it doesn't have to be perfect from the very first time. It won't, and it shouldn't be, okay? It's never been that way. Let me put it that way for anyone, to be honest. Okay, so that's more or less the first measure. And also, I want to say something. The first measure is kind of like a variation of one of our finger patterns. So if you remember, one of the finger patterns was open, 1, 2, 1. But now this is 2, 1, open, 1. It's kind of like if you took one half of it and then copy and pasted it to actually the beginning of it. You would get actually these first 4 notes. And so don't overcomplicate this. It can actually, like, all of what you've played in this piece is actually you've played it basically already in the finger patterns, which was intentional on my part. Okay, so first measure is probably the hardest one, right? So if you've gotten there and you've gotten that far, boom, you're already so far in this, and it comes back again in the last 4 measures, and you'll see. Okay, so now the second measure, and remember what measures are. They're the places on the staff that are separated by the bar lines, so the vertical lines, right? So every 4 beats, there will be another measure and another bar line, all right? So we're looking at the second measure now, and the second measure in terms of rhythm is going to be different, right? So it's 2 quarter notes and then 1 half note, all right? So we have 2 1 beat counts and then 1 2 beat counts. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And the kind of the nice thing about it is that it's just 1 note, right? It's just the second finger. So if we think about it now in a little bit differently here, it's actually, and we'll go back and put this all together, but if you look, it's 2, 1, open, 1, 2, 2, 2, right? So we're just playing the first 3 notes and then going back to basically the second finger again, right? And so let's, again, we're not going to overcomplicate this at all. It's just patterns, and it's just a logical stepwise motion, okay? So let me show you the second measure only, okay? So here is only the second measure, all right? Ready, go. Okay, so notice that I used a lot more bow on the half note, all right? So I'll show you one more time. All right, so that is the second measure. Now, before we move on to the third measure, I want to do the first and second measure together now, all right? So let's try it. 1, 2, ready, go. Nice. All right, let's do it one more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. Okay, so we just covered the first 2 measures. Now, if this is still kind of like feels maybe a little overwhelming, remember our strategies, okay? It does not have to be as seamless as I'm playing. It doesn't need to be, you know, as in tune or sound quality. Again, you're playing this for the very first time, okay? Now, if you need to go slower than me, completely fine. If you need to put pauses in between notes, if you need to use less bow, that's totally, completely fine. And I would expect that actually to be the case. And I would encourage you to find the comfort in this and then build out to greater lengths. So start in the comfort zone and then expand out of that as you get more and more comfortable. So that's why I really advocate for doing and getting your reps in. So, you know, the first time you do it, you're maybe gonna mess up several notes, or maybe it's gonna be hard to start a few times, but that's totally fine. That's why we do it over and over again, and just get in the reps and just notice every single time you do a rep what you would like to try and do better the next rep, and then try to apply and change something just slightly so that you can go through the trial and error process. All right, but you have to kind of listen, and you have to make the adjustments between each rep. All right, and then you're going to see progress happen quite rapidly. It's one of the practice tools I've used nearly my entire life to learn things quite quickly. Okay, so moving on here, let me keep on breaking this down. So now the third measure, as you'll see, it's the same exact rhythm as the second measure, okay? So we understand that totally. And it's also just one single note, right? It doesn't change any notes in the third measure at all. So the third measure is just B natural, so just the very first finger on the A string, right on the tape. All right, so let's try that. Now, you're probably wondering what the V symbol is on top of the first note in the third measure, and that symbol means up bow. Okay, so what up bow means is, well, actually, before I describe that, if you see the very first note in the very first measure, you see this kind of like upside down U, kind of like a block looking figure or symbol, and that means down bow. Okay, so the bow moves in two directions. It either goes down or it goes up. All right, so basically down bow is this way, where the bow, or the frog, I like to think of it from the frog perspective, the frog is going towards the floor, right, or down. Now an up bow is where the frog is going up towards the ceiling. Okay, so those are really the only two options we have, either down or up. If you play guitar, sometimes there's like the strums, there's different directions of strums, like sometimes there are like arrows to indicate that. Again, I don't play guitar, so I could be wrong, but from what I understand, that's the case. And yeah, so for violin, and actually for string instruments in general, with bows, these are two symbols that we use quite often. Okay, so I explain this because when we just practice this by itself, we should try to do our best to actually start this measure up bow. Okay, so normally we start down bow, where our bow is going this way. So this time we're going to actually start more in the upper half, so a little bit above the middle of the bow. Okay, so I'm going to place the bow up here, so a little bit more higher than in the middle of my bow. All right, and let me show you what the third measure sounds like. All right, ready, go. Okay, so that's what the third measure sounds like. I'll do it one more time. Ready, go. All right, so that is the third measure. Now, I want to move on actually now to the fourth measure. So the fourth measure is, in terms of rhythm, exactly the same again as the second, third, and now the fourth measure. So second, third, and fourth measure, same rhythm, exactly, right? Now this one has two different notes in it, right? So the first note is C sharp, and then the second and third note in the measure are E, all right? So our fourth finger. So we start on our second finger and then go to our fourth finger, which is E, all right? So same rhythm, just a couple of different notes. So here we go. Now this measure may feel a little bit more strained because we have to use our fourth finger. And I'll give you a little strategy here to overcome that if it's really, really hard for you to use your fourth finger at this moment. And that's totally understandable if it is. But first, let me demonstrate the fourth measure. And if you'll see, the first note has the down bow symbol. So let's start down bow. Here we go. Ready, go. All right, one more time. Ready, go. All right. So that's more or less the first four measures. So again, find the similarities, right? So from the first measure into the second measure, we basically just have a 3-note scale, starting on our second finger, going down to an open A, and then going back up to our second finger. And then for 2 measures, we just repeat the same rhythm and play 1 note in each measure. So just C sharp in the second measure, and then just B in the third measure. And then the fourth measure, we have a little bit of a variation where we play 2, 4, 4. All right. Now, if the fourth finger in the fourth measure feels really, really difficult and you're having a hard time reaching for the fourth finger, or you even feel maybe a little bit of tension in the left hand, a little bit of tension will be probably normal in the beginning, just because your fourth finger is the weakest finger in the hand, and we'll just have to build a little bit of strength. But if you ever get to a point where it just hurts and or starts to feel like it's hurting, don't absolutely don't push yourself. What you can actually do is just use the open E string, okay? So the fourth finger is the exact same note as the open E string. So instead of playing, we can just play open E instead. Okay, so I didn't put down any notes, but or any fingers. I just moved the bow and I dropped my elbow from here, dropped my elbow down to the E string, and then played that. Now, I personally recommend not to do this because it's going to introduce a technique we're probably not accustomed to yet, which is string crossings. Okay. And we haven't really gone into depth about that and actually how to navigate string crossings. But basically, if your fourth finger is just feeling really out of the question, which happens a lot of times with beginners, I think it's important to introduce this now, just in case, so that you don't feel like you can't use your fourth finger or play this piece. Okay, so basically, if you're in that spot where you feel like your fourth finger is just a little bit too hard to use at this point, what I would just really recommend is using the open E string instead. So just like I showed you, we basically just drop down the elbow until our bow is only on the E string and play that. So I just wanted to show you a quick exercise or strategy to practice that string crossing I was talking about, just in case your fourth finger is a little bit hard to use here. So what you can do is well, I'll demonstrate and then explain it. So here we go. This is just for the fourth measure, and if your fourth finger is a little bit hard to use. Okay, so I'll do this one more time. I'll hold my violin up a little bit more so my hand doesn't get lost in the frame. Okay, so basically all we do is play the first note, so play the C sharp, the first note in the fourth measure, and then we take a rest and we pause and we make the adjustment where we lower our upper arm to the E string, and then once we're there, we move to the next note, which is the E, okay? So that's how I would practice it, and I would just make that pause less and less until it started feeling a lot more comfortable, all right? So that's basically it. Yeah, and we'll play through this first line later in the video, but this is basically how you would break it down, practice it, and yeah, let's go back into the presentation and we'll discover more of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Hello, welcome back. So let's keep on going here. So part 2 of breaking it down into chunks, some practice strategies. All right, so this is the entire Mary Had a Little Lamb. All right. So we've already looked at the first four measures, how to break it down. Let's tackle the last four measures, which are more or less pretty similar to the first four. Okay. So there's only 8 measures in this entire piece. And so very doable for us and very approachable, especially because I assume and will probably have a good guess that most of you know this already, or at least could sing it, hum it, or have memories of singing this at some point in your life. So let's keep on going here. So we're going to start over here, which is now the fifth measure, right? So we have exactly the same measure that we had at the very beginning. Okay, so the fifth measure and the first measure entirely the same. So we already know it, all right? So we don't have to practice it as much. Um, so since we already know it, let's keep on going here. So now in the sixth measure, let's identify the rhythm and then the notes. So the rhythm is the same exact rhythm as the first and fifth measure, actually. And so it's just 4 quarter notes and it's just one note. It's just our second finger. All right. So it's pretty similar to the second measure of this piece, except that the rhythm is just different. Okay. And then if we look at the seventh measure here, it's just 2 different notes. So just B natural and C sharp, which is our first and second finger. And it is 4 quarter notes once again. So a very simple, or the same exact rhythm as the first measure, the fifth, sixth, and now the seventh measure. So it's 2 B naturals, then 1 C sharp, and then a B natural again. So just 1, 1, 2, 1 in terms of fingering. And then the last measure of the piece is just your open A string on a half note. And then you're probably wondering, what is this symbol, Chris? Well, that symbol is just 2 beats of rest, and we call it a half rest, okay? And it symbolizes 2 beats of silence, okay? So we don't have to play anything else in that measure other than the very first 2 beats, which is a half note open A string. All right, so um, pretty simple. We talked about some of these patterns already. We saw how it's similar to the beginning, the correlations there. And this is important actually to note. So once you finish the first line in music, so when you're playing music, you'll see that eventually it gets separated up into lines, right? So when we play music, it's much, much like reading a book or reading a piece of paper that has paragraphs on it and things. You just keep on continuing to the next line. So we don't take a break or anything in between the lines themselves or pause. We just keep on going. Okay, so that's important to mention. I know a lot of beginners think that there should be some kind of, you know, break or pause or something like that in between the lines when they first start reading music and playing it that are more than one line long. But nope, we just keep on going. Just keep on going playing and reading the music. All right. So I will jump back with my violin and we will go through the last 4 measures of this piece similarly that we did the first 4 measures. Okay. I'll see you soon. All right, so let's talk about the last 4 measures here. So starting in measure 5, one thing that will be a little bit different in measure 5 than measure 4 is just the bowing, okay? So how the rhythms work and the bowing works, measure 5 will actually this time start up bow rather than down bow, okay? So here we go. So I will play measure 5 for you, and we are starting up bow, so I'll be a little bit above the middle of the bow. Here we go. Ready, go. Okay, we'll do that one more time. Ready, go. All right, so basically, really throughout all of this, what I'm trying to do is stay pretty centered in my sounding point. So right between the fingerboard and the bridge, right? So that 3 sounding point that we've talked about. And I'm not trying to use my whole bow here, maybe half bows at most, but it doesn't have to be half bows. You can stay in the middle of the bow if that is the most comfortable at this point, and then later you can try to expand that out. But that's the 5th measure, and then the 6th measure, which will also start up bow, is just 4 quarter notes, so the same rhythm as the 5th measure, and actually a lot easier. It's just 1 note. Okay, so let's do the 6th measure here. Ready, go. Okay. Now, one thing that I find is perhaps a common mistake with beginners is when there are repeated notes, and a lot of repeated notes in one measure, sometimes it's hard to keep track of actually how many notes you played. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on when you're trying to learn the violin. There's a lot of things to think about: your bow speed, your bow weight, where it's on the string, what finger you're using, all those other things. So sometimes, counting how many notes we just played doesn't really make it high on the priority list sometimes when we're just starting out. So my trick and strategy for that is to actually just write in the bowing for it. So what I would do is, so in the 6th measure, the first note starts up bow. So I would write an up bow symbol on the very first note, and then just kind of go on. So the 2nd note would be a down bow, and then the 3rd note an up bow, and then the 4th note would be a down bow, okay? And again, the down bow is, the down bow symbol looks like the kind of upside down U that you see on the very first note in the very first measure. And then the up bow symbol looks like a V, and it's the, you can see that symbol on the first note in the 3rd measure, okay? Just so you know how to notate that. All right, and sometimes that helps me when I write in the bowing on top of the notes, because it gives me something visual to look at and keep track of, rather than something that is exactly the same throughout the entire measure. Great. Okay, so that's the 6th measure, and then looking at the 7th measure, which is also going to start up bow. Remember, all we have are 2 different notes, and it's just our first finger and the 2nd finger, so B natural and C sharp, and it's again just 4 quarter notes. Okay, so here we go. Ready, go. Okay, so again, just trying to stay on that 3 sounding point, not use any kind of super fancy bow speed or bow weight, just trying to keep a consistent, solid sound that has a lot of core in it and tone. That's really all that I'm going for in it. Not trying to use too much bow, maybe at max, again, just like maybe half bows, but simplifying this is going to be a lot easier for us. All right, and now for the very last measure, which I know we all can do because we've been doing this for a few days now, and it's just our open A for 2 beats, okay? And this will be up bow as well. So ready, go. All right, so just an up bow on the A. Ready, go. Awesome. Okay, so those are all the notes and rhythms of Mary Had a Little Lamb. All right, and that's how I kind of break it down. The very first 4 measures are perhaps more challenging than the last 4, but and I think for today you may want to get most of your reps in on the first 4 measures. That's what I would recommend, just because it may be a little bit more difficult, especially if the 4th finger is uncomfortable for you to use at this point. Okay? Well, great. All right, so I think that's all about practice strategies and breaking this down. we'll go back into the presentation and put things together. See you soon. All right, welcome back. Here we go. Putting the pieces together, part one, practice strategies. Okay, so here is the complete Mary Had a Little Lamb. One more time. These are some more practice strategies as we're trying to put this all together. So these are some suggestions. Um, so record yourself playing through small sections. So two measures or less. It can even be one note, two notes. It can be going from the last note in a measure to the very first note in the next measure. Any place where you feel like there's a barrier or it's hard for you to move past from, and you may have to feel like you have to pause or you can't really play it continuously without that one spot or a few spots. I would record those things and then try to analyze it from an outside perspective. I find that to be quite helpful, and especially smaller chunks. Certainly, once you get really comfortable with two measures at a time, you can try four measures at a time or three measures, maybe an entire line at a time. Eventually, you could probably do the whole song, but definitely starting in small sections is going to lead to the most success. And honestly, this is an opportunity to focus on a single goal to improve. So, this is, I think, one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is when they start recording themselves, they quickly stop recording themselves. And part of that is because when you get that outside perspective, you hear a lot of information, right? You hear a lot of things that you may actually just want to fix. And you kind of have to control yourself and your thought process when that kind of stuff happens. You really have to have a bit of a tunnel vision, unfortunately, when you're doing this. So, like, for instance, if you're just trying to make sure you get the right fingering, um, and you want to record yourself through one of the measures just to um, listen back to it, see if you're playing it in rhythm or if you're still trying to stop in some places. Maybe you don't realize it and it's still happening. But when you listen back to it, maybe the fingering is really good, but um, there's all these other things that you discover, and it makes you then have to like go in an entirely different direction in your practice session, and then you kind of go down a rabbit hole and you get distracted. All right, so you can kind of see where I'm going here. You really have to kind of focus on a single goal or just maybe a few goals, one or two goals during your practice, or when you're doing your reps or you're trying to record. And if you hear all these other things going on, it's okay. And I think it's good to notice them, but don't allow them to overtake what you're actually trying to accomplish and your goals for that practice session, because you want to complete those goals and then move on to the other things that you may be hearing. So take it step at one step at a time, and it will be a lot faster that way. Um, and that's kind of my biggest advice for you. You'll also want to keep recording yourself because it's almost like you're checking something off on your to-do list. Like, oh, I completed that. Okay, great. So now I can focus on this other thing that I need to accomplish in my tasks. So like now I can really focus on my sound quality, or now I can really focus on, um, the coordination and going from one line to the next line, or you know, making sure my C sharps are in a really good place in terms of my fingering and it's not too low or too high. Those kinds of things. Or maybe it's a coordination thing. But just these are just examples, but just making sure that you really kind of complete each goal one at a time before moving on to other things, especially in this process of recording yourself, because it can be quite overwhelming in the beginning. So another thing that we actually haven't been doing today is using our metronome, and this is really important because more so than just like playing it correctly in a steady tempo, but also our hands and playing an instrument um, and our body is we're designed to kind of create stability when things are predictable and time and the concept of time, especially when it's consistent and one speed, it's a lot easier to create that consistency and steadiness and predictability in our hands. So we know exactly how to coordinate both our hands together when they're exactly coordinated in a specific time. So when we do it in its tempo and a speed, that's always set in the right way, then it's a lot easier to stay consistent and execute the music and play the instrument at higher levels. So other than just rhythm and steady tempos, it's actually really good on a technique level and building really healthy technique in the long term. So definitely recommend using your metronome. Okay. And you all should have downloaded either a free app or been using like your web browser or Google for that. And remember, you can, if you're not comfortable downloading a free metronome app on your phone or iPad or whatever, then you can just simply do a Google search. Just type in metronome in your Google search, and a metronome will come up in your search as the first result, and you can just use that instead, and you don't have to download anything at all, which is awesome. Okay, so now one more thing here that may be happening, and if it's not, totally fine, and if it is, also here is a strategy that you can use. So if you're having a hard time playing the notes accurately, right? Like you feel like it's hard to get it into your ear, really try to internalize the music more by singing it through a few times. So you can either sing it, that's my way of doing it. Another way that some people do is just by listening to it. So you may listen to it. You can just go on YouTube or whatever and listen to this song quite a bit. I'm sure it's everywhere, and then come back to your violin and try to play small sections. And you could either even do a little bit of both of these where you're listening to it, and then you're trying to internally kind of like sing along with it or hum to yourself, or sing it in your head while you're listening to it. Then step away from the recording, sing it internally for yourself one more time, and then approach it with the violin and try to play through some small sections and see, how it's improved, how it hasn't, and then just kind of like rinse and repeat that process. You will definitely see improvements if you're struggling with trying to internalize and play some of these notes accurately. The more you train your ear that way, the more you'll be able to fine tune a lot of these things in terms of pitch and notes, intonation, or anything like that. There may be one thing that you'll find that this piece is probably in a lot of different keys, and you may like if you find a recording of it, it may not be in this key. So that's the only thing I would caution you with. But I still think it will be helpful regardless, and I don't think it hurts to try. Okay, so that is one more strategy that I'd like to offer you all. All right, now here we are. We completed day 5, which is absolutely incredible. Um, So you finally started your first piece on the violin and have a practice strategy for each measure. And before you knew it, you had already learned all the notes earlier in the course anyways. So this is another extremely huge and massive milestone in the books and your violin journey. I'm so thrilled for you guys. And here is the practice assignment. So practice the first 4 measures, and I would recommend doing at least 5 reps at 80 beats per minute with the metronome. And then do the last four measures and do exactly the same thing. Okay. And I would do this in chunks. If the first four measures of like four measures at a time feels like a lot, then just kind of break it into smaller segments. Still try to get in a good number of reps, at least five. If you can do 10 and you have the time for that, totally recommend that too. It shouldn't take too much time. I think a four measure, just one rep takes just a few seconds, if that. So yeah, absolutely recommend that in your practice for today, and focus on really just uh, trying to get through sections without stopping. Okay, so trying to prepare yourself, looking ahead, and trying to not have to stop to fix thing or adjust something. All right. So before you get to that point, you will definitely have to be really comfortable with just the overall structure of the fingering. So understanding that, also being able to read the notes and the rhythms. And there's just two rhythms in the whole thing. It's either a quarter note or half note, so either one beat or two beats. And yeah, and so once you kind of put all those pieces together, and kind of practice each measure individually, kind of like what we did already, then you should be able to start feeling like you can kind of play through bigger chunks without stopping. All right. So see if you can do 5 reps of the first four measures and the last four measures. And then, yeah, I'm extremely, extremely thrilled of your progress in this course. And remember, perfection really isn't the goal here. Progress is. That's so, so, so important. Can't reiterate that enough. And, if you ever need help or have questions, please know that I'm here. I'm available in the chat messages on the school platform. But if you'd like FaceTime, book a free violin strategy call with me, and let's explore how I can make your violin journey as meaningful as possible. That's where you can sign up for it, robinsonviolinschool.com/start. And I hope I get to meet some of you all and yeah, help you make this journey with your violin extremely meaningful, help you really achieve your goals. This is absolutely like I teaching the violin is something that I'm just so incredibly passionate about, and seeing more people start to play the violin and enjoy music and share that with others just means the world to me. And for me to be able to be a part of your life in this way and your journey with the violin means so much. And anything that I can do to help you along the way, I'm here. So please reach out. And I will see you for day 6. All right. See ya.